before he became the 45th President of the United States, before he branded steaks, universities, and campaign rallies with his name, Donald John Trump was a businessman, and like everything else about him, his fortune has been a lightning rod for controversy. But what is the truth about Donald Trump's wealth? Today we go deep. From German immigrants and outer borough rentals to billion-dollar towers, bankrupt casinos, reality TV, lawsuits, and a social media comeback. This is the complete financial saga of Donald Trump, how he made his money, how he lost it, and whether he'd be richer today if he'd simply done nothing. The Trump family story begins not in Manhattan, but in a small village in the Kingdom of Bavaria. In 1885, a 16-year-old boy named Friedrich Trump boarded a ship bound for America. With no English, no formal education, and only a few coins in his pocket, he landed in New York City, a city that would later become synonymous with the Trump name. But Friedrich, or Frederick, didn't stay there long. He headed west, chasing the gold rush dreams in Seattle and the Yukon. There, he operated restaurants, taverns, and some say brothels, accumulating a modest fortune before returning to New York. He died of influenza in 1918, leaving behind a wife, 3 children, and an estate worth about $31,000, worth nearly $500,000 in today's money. It was his son, Fred Trump, who laid the real foundation. Born in 1905, Fred was a builder. At age 15, he founded his first company, Elizabeth Trump and Son, with his mother. Through the 1920s and 30s, he began building single-family homes in Queens and Brooklyn. After World War II, he capitalized on federal housing subsidies, constructing massive apartment complexes for returning GIs. He was shrewd, efficient, and by the 1950s, one of the most successful landlords in New York. Fred Trump wasn't flashy. He didn't crave the spotlight. His success came from scale and systemization. He was known as the Henry Ford of housing, building affordable homes rapidly and renting them out to working-class families, often immigrants. His buildings weren't luxurious, but they were well-built and dependable. And most importantly, they were profitable. Fred understood the power of government programs, leveraging them to build housing developments with minimal capital risk. He became an expert at exploiting the Housing Act of 1949, which aimed to provide affordable housing across America. Fred used this to grow his empire massively. By the 1960s, Fred Trump owned and managed more than 27,000 apartments across Brooklyn and Queens. His wealth was immense, although largely private. Unlike future real estate moguls who relied on flash and media presence, Fred's empire grew behind the scenes. But his business practices were not without scrutiny. In 1973, Fred and his son Donald were sued by the Department of Justice for alleged racial discrimination in renting policies. Black applicants were reportedly marked with a code and denied housing, while white applicants were accepted. The case was eventually settled with no admission of wrongdoing, but under the agreement, the Trumps had to submit to stricter rental monitoring and changes in policy. Donald, in the meantime, had been learning. Attending the New York Military Academy and then the Wharton School of Business, he was exposed to wealth, power, and competition from an early age. He idolized moguls like William Zeckendorf and wanted something more than outer borough housing. He wanted Manhattan. He wanted marble. He wanted gold. In 1971, Donald Trump took over Elizabeth Trump and Son and renamed it the Trump Organization. He immediately shifted the company's direction. Gone were the middle-income housing projects. In came luxury real estate and high-stakes investments. Donald's first major project was the renovation of the Commodore Hotel, located next to Grand Central Station. At the time, it was a dilapidated property on the verge of collapse. Trump orchestrated a complex deal. He negotiated a 40-year tax abatement from the city, partnered with the Hyatt Hotel Corporation, and convinced banks to finance the redevelopment. The project opened in 1980 as the Grand Hyatt Hotel, and was a resounding success. Flush with confidence and positive press, Trump set his sights even higher. In 1979, he broke ground on Trump Tower, a luxury skyscraper on Fifth Avenue that would change the game. Completed in 1983, Trump Tower wasn't just a building, it was a brand. Featuring a 6-story atrium with pink marble, indoor waterfalls, and brass finishes, it quickly became a symbol of 1980s luxury excess. Apartments sold for record-breaking prices. Retailers like Tiffany & Company moved in. The Trump name was now synonymous with wealth. Trump followed up with other glitzy projects. Trump Plaza on the Upper East Side, Trump Park, the Trump Palace. He purchased the Plaza Hotel in 1988 for $407 million, an emotional buy that made headlines. He even purchased an airline, formerly Eastern Air Shuttle, and rebranded it as Trump Shuttle. It was the era of power suits, big hair, and bigger egos, and Donald Trump was on the cover of every magazine. On paper, he was a billionaire. But there was a catch. All of it was financed with debt. By the late 1980s, Donald Trump was drowning in loans. His casinos in Atlantic City, Trump Plaza, Trump Castle, and the crown jewel Trump Taj Mahal were hemorrhaging cash. The Plaza Hotel was not profitable, the airline was struggling, and the recession of the early 90s was about to hit. In 1991, Trump's Taj Mahal declared Chapter 11 bankruptcy. It couldn't service its $1 billion in debt. The following year, Trump Castle and Trump Plaza also filed for bankruptcy. He lost control of the airline. The Plaza Hotel followed in 1992. By 1993, Donald Trump had surrendered significant equity in many of his ventures to creditors. He went from owning assets to licensing his name to keep himself afloat. At the height of the collapse, Trump owed over $3.4 billion, including $900 million in personal guarantees. His net worth turned negative, but his bankers saw something worth preserving: his brand. Rather than push him into personal bankruptcy, they allowed Trump to restructure. He lived under tight restrictions, needing bank approval for personal expenses. The yacht? Gone. The private jet? Repossessed. But he survived. The early 1990s had humbled Trump, but it also taught him a lesson. The Trump name could be more valuable than the assets themselves. He pivoted from ownership to branding. The shift was subtle at first, but powerful. Instead of buying and building with his own capital, Trump began licensing his name to developers worldwide. From Istanbul to Manila, from Toronto to Dubai, Trump-branded buildings began rising. He had little or no ownership in many of them, but he collected fees and maintained global visibility. He also leaned into tabloid culture. Trump became a media fixture, frequenting Page Six, Howard Stern, and late-night interviews. He portrayed himself as a comeback king, a living example of second acts in American life. In 1997, he published The Art of the Comeback. It wasn't a bestseller like his first book, but it solidified the message. Trump was back. The business press, however, remained skeptical. Many of his ventures, particularly the casinos, were still bleeding money. In 2004, his publicly traded company, Trump Hotels and Casino Resorts, filed for bankruptcy again. By 2009, it had done so multiple times, but Trump personally distanced himself from the financial pain. "I've used the laws of this country to my advantage," he'd say. And legally, he had. Then came the next reinvention, this time on television. In 2004, NBC launched The Apprentice. The concept was simple. A group of contestants competed in business-related tasks for a chance to work for Trump. But it was more than a game show. It was a rebranding engine. Each episode opened with sweeping shots of Manhattan, dramatic music, and Trump stepping off helicopters or into boardrooms. His catchphrase, "You're fired," became a cultural phenomenon. He wore tailored suits, sat behind giant desks, and portrayed the ultimate executive. Millions tuned in. What the show did was redefine Donald Trump in the public eye. No longer was he just a flashy real estate guy with a checkered financial past. He became the boss, and it paid. According to later reporting, Trump earned around $427 million from The Apprentice and associated licensing deals. He turned that exposure into opportunities. Trump Water, Trump Ties, Trump Steaks, Trump University. Some succeeded. Others, like the university, would lead to lawsuits. Trump was everywhere. He licensed his name to residential towers in Chicago, Las Vegas, and overseas. Golf courses bearing his name opened across the US and Europe. And through it all, he insisted he was worth more than ever, often citing his brand as being worth billions on its own. But questions lingered. How much was real? And how much was reality TV? In the background of Trump's rise, legal and financial clouds began to form. Trump University, founded in 2005, was marketed as a way to learn real estate from the master himself. But students complained of deceptive practices and unfulfilled promises. In 2013, the New York Attorney General sued for fraud. Multiple class action suits followed. In 2016, Trump settled for $25 million, just days after winning the presidential election. Then came the Trump Foundation. In 2018, New York's Attorney General accused the charity of illegal coordination with Trump's 2016 campaign and of using funds for personal benefit, including buying a portrait of himself. Trump admitted no wrongdoing but paid $2 million in damages and shut the foundation down. But the biggest financial revelations came in 2020, when the New York Times obtained years of Trump's tax returns. The findings shocked the public. Trump had paid just $750 in federal income taxes in 2016 and again in 2017. And in 10 of the previous 15 years, he paid nothing at all. How? He reported massive losses. The documents showed that many Trump businesses were losing money, particularly his golf courses and hotels. The Apprentice had been hugely profitable, but much of that income had been consumed by losses elsewhere. Trump also carried a $300 million loan bill coming due. The narrative was shifting again, from comeback mogul to man under audit. In 2015, Donald Trump descended a golden escalator and announced his candidacy for president. It was widely seen as a publicity stunt. Instead, it launched a political movement and eventually a presidency. While in office, Trump refused to divest from his business empire, breaking with decades of precedent. His hotels and golf courses continued operating. Foreign dignitaries stayed at Trump properties. Government agencies held events at his venues. Critics screamed about the emoluments clause. Lawsuits followed, but none succeeded before he left office. By the end of his term in 2021, the Trump Organization was under multiple investigations. New York prosecutors alleged that the company had inflated the value of assets to secure loans and deflated them for tax benefits. In 2022, the Trump Organization was convicted on 17 counts of criminal tax fraud. Then, in early 2024, came a bombshell. A New York judge ordered Trump to pay $454 million in penalties for years of financial fraud. The court found that he had routinely exaggerated his net worth to lenders. Trump's legal team appealed, but the financial damage was done. And yet, even amid mounting legal bills, Trump launched new ventures. He founded Truth Social. He sold digital trading cards, NFTs, with his likeness in superhero costumes. Some mocked him, others bought in. Here's a question financial analysts love to ask. What if Donald Trump had never done any of this? What if he had taken the money his father gave him, estimated between $40 million and $200 million depending on the year, and simply invested it? Let's take a conservative number. If Trump had placed $40 million into an S&P 500 index fund in 1974 and reinvested dividends, he would be worth around $4.5 billion today, without building a single tower or declaring a single bankruptcy. If he had invested $200 million in 1982, the year Forbes first listed him among the wealthiest Americans, his portfolio would likely exceed $9 billion today. In other words, Trump's high-profile career hasn't vastly outperformed the market. Some years, he soared. Other times, he plummeted. The volatility was dramatic, but the long-term return? Mixed. Of course, Trump might say, it wasn't just about money, it was about impact, visibility, legacy. So how much is Donald Trump worth right now? That depends who you ask. As of 2025, Forbes estimates his net worth at $5.1 billion. Bloomberg says $7.1 billion. Trump claims over $10 billion. The discrepancy lies in asset values and brand assumptions. Trump's properties include golf clubs, hotels, and licensing deals. Some are wildly successful. Others lose money year after year. Add to that court penalties, legal fees, and loans coming due, and the picture gets complicated fast. Still, Trump remains one of the richest people ever to hold the presidency. His fortune has waxed and waned, but never disappeared. Donald Trump inherited a fortune. He built it into a brand. He lost it, rebuilt it, licensed it, bragged about it, fought lawsuits over it, became president because of it. And today, at nearly 80 years old, he's still in the headlines because of it. The story of Trump's wealth is not one of straight lines. It's a jagged, gilded roller coaster. It's capitalism in its most theatrical form. A story of boldness, ego, spectacle, and survival. And whether you admire him or not, one thing is certain. Donald Trump didn't just make money, he made money history.